What is going on, guys? Thank you so much for tuning into yet another episode of Yards Per Fantasy. I am your host, Kevin Brumley, and today we are talking about overrated players. That's the fun thing about fantasy football is we don't always view players the same way. So I am joined by some of the staff members over here at Yards Per Fantasy, and we're going to go through at each position who we think overrated players are. So I hope you guys enjoy.
My quarterback is not going to be a popular pick. I say Kyler Murray is very overrated. I've seen his ADP as high as QB4. And for Dynasty, I think that makes some sense. I think he's got a bright future. For 2020, I don't see that upside. There's Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. Those are all guys that I would take over Kyler Murray for 2020 without a doubt. It's, again, the shortened camps and everything. DeAndre Hopkins is not going to show up as the DeAndre Hopkins we saw last year. It's going to take at least a few weeks to get up and running. And also, remember Baker Mayfield? We were saying the same thing about him last season, and he did not take that same step. I don't think Kyler Murray is going to be he might not even be outside the top 10, but he's not going to be QB4 in 2020.
The quarterback I think that's overrated is Drew Brees, and that's tough. I just think that's fantasy-wise. He just doesn't have the volume. They're not throwing as much as other teams are anymore. So I just think with top 10 finish for Drew Brees might be a little tougher without that volume.
My quarterback that's getting, I think, too much love is Matthew Stafford. I mean, he had a great season last year, but I've been seeing a lot of people projecting his stats because he missed a lot of games, but his full season stats would have been amazing. But if you look at the details, I mean, he's averaged 22 touchdowns since 2012 outside of last year. And I mean, last year was a statistical outlier in so many categories. And I think a lot of people are banking on that to continue. And I mean, even if he regresses slightly to his, I mean, he's averaged 300 yards a game a season. Last year, he had 4 in 8 games. I mean, there's just a lot of things that are kind of worrying for me. And I think he's going to regress a bit and hurt a lot of people on fantasy.
My overrated QB, I was thinking I was going to honestly do Carson Wentz, but on the way home, I changed it to Josh Allen, primarily because what broke the tie was pretty much that Josh Allen is going – his ADP is in the 7th round, yet per Fantasy Pros, he has the 31st hardest schedule. Also, on top of that, I really don't believe in him as a quarterback. I think he was drafted in the 1st round for the wrong reasons because he had a big arm. He doesn't really hold up well for NFL in real life. He doesn't really hold up well in really clutch situations. But outside of that, I mean, going back to his schedule, the second half of his schedule is pretty brutal. He's got starting at week 8, he's got the Patriots. Then he's got Seattle Seahawks. Then he's going to week 10. He's got at Arizona Cardinals, which isn't bad. Then they go on a bye. Week 12, he's got the Chargers. Not a easy defense this year. They get Derwin James back. They just added a really good linebacker in the draft. They got Chris Harris Jr. playing corner now. It's going to be really tough. They got then they got at week 13 at 49ers, Steelers, week 15 at Denver, and week 16 at Patriots. That is Josh Allen's back half, second half schedule.
Running back, I don't just hate the Cardinals, but running back is Kenyon Drake. I've seen him at RB8, and Kenyon Drake is 26. Running backs start to decline at 26. They don't break out. Kenyon Drake obviously had the exceptional December after he was traded to the Cardinals last season, but historically he's high-end RB2, and running backs don't break out at 26. I don't see him taking another step and becoming this top 10 running back at this stage in his career. He's got some upside for sure, but I think he's too touchdown dependent to become the running back 8 or be drafted at that.
The running back I think is the most overrated is Kenyon Drake. He's never had more than 700 yards until last year rushing. So I think having him as a running back 9, while the offense should be lethal, it's a little risky.
My overrated running back is Austin Eckler. Now, he is still going to get targets from Tyrod Taylor or whoever's throwing the ball, but the fact that Phillip Rivers is going, that means I think the offense is going to struggle. The targets are going to go down, and the majority of what makes him a good fantasy asset, which is his targets, are going to get decreased. And, looking at how the Chargers have viewed things, the head coach still wants a running back by committee. They're not really trusting him with more offensive carries. So it's just a bit concerning for me. I mean, because if the carries aren't really going up and the targets are going to go down, it could be a disappointing year for him, just where he's being drafted at.
My overrated running back is Raheem Mostert. Guy is 28 years old. I like him as a running back, but he's 20 years old, and he put up career highs last year in Kyle Shanahan's run offense, run scheme. He ran for 772 yards and 8 touchdowns. Those are the highest marks of his 6-year career, and we're taking him in the 6th round. I mean, I think we got to approach this backfield just like we did with the Patriots in years before, taking Deion Lewis in the last round, taking LeGarrette Blount as the last running back off the board. I think these running backs their production are strongly correlated to how Kyle Shanahan uses them and utilizes running backs. So I'm not taking Raheem Mostert at his price tag in the 6th round. I'll be pivoting to Tevin Coleman, and possibly if Jerick McKinnon looks good, I'm gonna maybe get cute and take Jerick McKinnon even later when nobody's been looking at him.
Wide receiver, I really struggled with finding one that I think is overrated, just because I think there's so many good wide receivers in the league right now. But the one that I finally went with is Kenny Golladay, which I don't like because I love Kenny G. But I think as far as his ADP puts him at wide receiver 7, I think of any of the wide receivers in the top 10, like Golladay is the most likely not to hit it again, just because his points last season was fairly touchdown dependent, which he could do again, but I'm not convinced that he's wide receiver 7 yet. I'd have to see it. The other one that I would say is DJ Moore, for kind of the same reasons. We just haven't seen it. DJ Moore, like a new offense, a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, a new everything. It's just tough for me to go all in on those young wide receivers for the same prices, guys that have already been there.
The wide receiver that I think is the most overrated, even though he's 25 for wide receiver right now, is Devontae Parker. Never before last year had over 800 yards, and he was being outplayed until he was injured by an undrafted free agent. He was out, I think, snapped out, targeted by Preston Williams. So I just think that it was Ryan Fitzpatrick, gunslinger, that really elevated him last year.
For me, it's AJ Brown. Here's a fun little stat. In 6 games, there were 6 games where he averaged 30 yards of reception. So he had 20 catches in those 6 games for 600 yards. And the Titans were just way too efficient. And there's such a run-heavy offense. I mean, they've been bottom of the league for the past couple of years. And I just don't trust Tannehill. I think he's going to regress. I mean, he actually ranked 2nd in the league in terms of pass per touchdown ratio, only behind Lamar Jackson. And I believe in one of them, but it's not Tannehill. So, and they're run heavy. I don't think Brown's going to get enough targets to maintain maintain that ridiculous efficiency. So I'm a bit concerned for him.
My overrated wide receiver, it's Amari Cooper. It's primarily because he's going in a tier with other receivers who are getting a larger target share, or who are going to be getting a larger target share than he is. He's going to be in an offense that's going to be he's going to be right next to CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Blake Jarwin, Tony Pollard out of the backfield, and Ezekiel Elliott out of the backfield. There's going to be a lot of targets going all over the place. The receivers that he's going in the tier that he's going in with the other receivers, he'll be going with Odell, AJ Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, DJ Moore, Allen Robinson, and Adam Thielen. Those guys are all going to outproduce him. I'd rather take him in the next tier with guys like Calvin Ridley, Robert Woods. I'm never going to get him down there. He's never going to slip down there because expert consensus rankings have him put in that tier with those other guys I just mentioned. So I probably will never, ever draft him.
The overrated tight end, I would say, is Tyler Higbee. I don't buy the hype. Like, he had a good month and a half at the end of last season. But Gerald Everett was hurt. It was just 1 month. He's been in the league like 4 years and hasn't done anything. And then he had one really good month, and people are thinking he's a tight end 1. I don't think that's the case. I'm not huge on the Rams offense anyway. And I don't think Tyler Higbee is the solution. I think he's got some upside. I think he can flash tight end 1 production. But I think if you're looking for like a consistent producer, I would much rather have like Hayden Hurst, Darren Waller, maybe even Kyle Rudolph. Like, I think there's a lot of other guys that I would pick over Tyler Higbee.
The tight end I think is the most overrated this year is Tyler Higbee. I just think there's a lot of mouths to feed with the running backs. I mean, with Cam Akers and everybody, and with receivers being healthy next year, I just think that'll be hard to uphold that top 10 tight end.
So for me, my overrated tight end is Austin Hooper for a multitude of reasons. 1, the quarterback downgrade to Baker Mayfield. 2, it's a more run-heavy offense. Stefanski is the offensive coordinator. I think he's going to be used more as a blocking tight end than a passing tight end. And also, there's just so many mouths to feed. I mean, They have, Hunt, they have Chubb, they have Beckham, Landry. I mean, it's just, and Joker's still there. I just think you're gonna be disappointed if you're banking on last year from Hooper.
My overrated tight end is definitely got to be Evan Ingram. There's no way I could even invest in this guy. His ADP is, I mean, it's not that early, but why even waste a pick on a guy who has such a lengthy injury history? The argument isn't too difficult against this guy. There are too many mouths to feed. Can't stay healthy on the field. I'm just not going to take him. I'd rather take my chances on another guy like Noah Fant or, Jonnu Smith is the big popular guy, Hayden Hurst, any one of those guys after. There are plenty of late rounds tight end, especially this season, to take and not waste a pick on Evan Ingram. If he falls late enough, I'll take him.